Marcus Chen watched the alien ships descend through his rifle scope, their sleek obsidian hulls reflecting the orange glow of Seattle's burning skyline. At 63, his hands were still steady as they gripped his cherished Barrett Morad, a weapon that had served him faithfully through 3 decades of military service. The Galactic Empire's arrival 6 months ago had transformed Earth's major cities into occupied territories, their advanced technology making most human resistance seem futile. From his hidden perch in an abandoned office building, Marcus observed the Cavalry patrol below. Their crystalline armor sparkled under the setting sun, energy weapons humming with an otherworldly resonance. The aliens moved with practiced precision, their 4-armed forms projecting an aura of absolute superiority. Primitive projectile weapons, one of the Cavalry officers had declared during their first broadcast, mandating the surrender of all human firearms. Your antiquated tools of war have no place in the new order. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. 26 confirmed kills in the past month suggested otherwise. The Cavalry's overconfidence in their technology had become their greatest weakness. Their sensors, calibrated to detect energy signatures and heat patterns, often missed the simple elegance of well-placed brass and lead. His earpiece crackled. Ghost Actual, this is Watchman. Large convoy approaching from the east. Looks like they're moving something important. Sarah Martinez, a former traffic controller turned resistance spotter, had eyes on every movement in their sector. Copy that, Watchman. What's the package? Marcus whispered, adjusting his scope to scan the approaching vehicles. Some kind of research equipment. They got their best guards on it. Crystal-class warriors. The Crystal class were the Cavalry's elite, their armor supposedly impenetrable to human weapons. Marcus had proven that myth wrong 2 weeks ago, when he discovered their helm joints were vulnerable to precise shots. The convoy rolled into view, their grav vehicles hovering silently above the cracked asphalt. Marcus counted 12 guards, their crystalline armor more elaborate than the standard troops. In the center, a massive container pulsed with an eerie blue light. Multiple targets identified, Marcus murmured. Time to remind them why they should fear the dark. He steadied his breathing, falling into the familiar rhythm that had served him through countless missions. The world narrowed to his scope, the distance, the wind, and his targets. The first shot would give away his position, but the chaos that followed would give him the coverage he needed. The crack of his rifle shattered the evening silence. The lead guard's helmet exploded in a shower of crystalline shards. Before the others could react, Marcus had already chambered another round. 2 more guards fell in quick succession, their supposedly superior armor useless against precisely placed shots. Panic erupted among the Cavalry. Their energy weapons lit up the darkening sky, but Marcus had already shifted positions, moving through pre-planned routes in the building's skeleton. Their sensor suites passed harmlessly over his heat-shielded uniform, another lesson learned from weeks of studying their technology. Ghost, they're calling in air support, Sarah warned. You've got 3 minutes. Marcus worked methodically, each shot finding its mark. The Cavalry's formations, perfect for their high-tech warfare, made them predictable targets for traditional marksmanship. 8 guards down, then 9. The remaining 3 abandoned their positions, seeking cover that might have worked against energy weapons, but did little against ballistic trajectories Marcus had mastered decades ago. The container lay exposed. Through his scope, Marcus could see it more clearly now. Some kind of quantum computer, if the resistance intel was correct. The kind of technology the Cavalry used to maintain their control over occupied territories. 1 minute to air support, Sarah updated. Marcus lined up his final shots. 2 more guards fell. The last one, apparently their commander, broke protocol and ran, broadcasting panic in their alien language. Marcus let him go. Sometimes, the survivors told the most important stories. With practiced efficiency, Marcus put 3 rounds into the container's power core. The blue pulsing turned red, then exploded in a cascade of energy that lit up the street like daylight. By the time the Cavalry gunships arrived, Marcus had already disappeared into the urban maze he called home, leaving behind another reminder that humanity wouldn't go quietly into submission. In his hidden bunker that night, listening to Kaveri emergency broadcasts Sarah intercepted, Marcus cleaned his rifle and smiled. The aliens were learning, slowly, what every human warrior knew. Technology alone doesn't win wars. Tomorrow, they'd bring better sensors, stronger armor, and more troops. And tomorrow, Marcus would teach them another lesson in human resilience. "They're putting a bounty on you," Sarah reported over their secure channel. "Calling you the ghost of Seattle now." "Good," Marcus replied, chambering around in preparation for the next day. "Let them come. We'll show them why they should have studied human history before they decided to conquer Earth. Every empire learns eventually. It's not the weapons that make a warrior dangerous. It's the will to never submit." The morning fog rolled through Seattle's ruins, transforming the shattered skyscrapers into looming shadows. Marcus moved silently through the urban maze, his weathered face hidden behind a thermal mask. 3 weeks had passed since the convoy ambush, and the Kaveri had responded with increasingly desperate measures to find him. Overhead, their patrol drones hummed continuously, their sensor arrays upgraded to detect the smallest human movements. The aliens had even begun deploying heat-seeking hunter-killer robots in the streets, their spindly forms skittering through debris like mechanical spiders. "They've changed the patrol patterns again," Sarah's voice whispered in his earpiece. "They're learning." Marcus paused behind a fallen concrete pillar, studying the new Kaveri formations through his binoculars. Their troops now moved in irregular patterns, maintaining overlapping fields of fire. No more predictable routes to exploit. "Good," he muttered. "Means we're hurting them." The resistance network had grown since his first successful strikes. What started as just him and Sarah had evolved into a sophisticated web of spotters, suppliers, and support teams. Every civilian who'd lost family to the Kaveri's pacification efforts became a potential ally. "Got something you need to see," Sarah continued. "Sending coordinates to your HUD." Marcus checked the digital display integrated into his tactical glasses, a gift from some tech-savvy resistance members who'd modified salvaged Kaveri technology. The location marked was an old subway station, now serving as one of the aliens' forward operating bases. "Heavy activity down there," Sarah explained. "They're bringing in some kind of new weapon system. Our inside source says it's specifically designed to counter human guerrilla tactics." Marcus began moving toward the coordinates, each step calculated and silent. Years of special forces training combined with months of studying Kaveri patterns had taught him how to exploit gaps in their security. What kind of weapon? Some sort of atmospheric control system. They're planning to flood the entire sector with nanites that'll track any non-Kaveri life signs. That would change everything. No more hiding in the shadows, no more surprise attacks. The aliens were finally adapting to human warfare, but Marcus had anticipated this. He hadn't survived this long by being predictable. "Remember that EMP device we salvaged last month?" he asked, reaching the entrance to an old maintenance tunnel. "The one that nearly fried our own comm systems." "Hard to forget." Marcus smiled grimly. "Time to put it to use. How's our timing look?" Sarah was silent for a moment, presumably checking her monitors. "You've got a 2-hour window before they start the nanite release. But Marcus, they got at least 30 crystal-class warriors down there. This isn't like picking them off from a distance." "Then I better not miss." He checked his rifle's magazine. Custom ammunition designed to penetrate Kaveri crystal armor, another innovation born from necessity. His sidearm was loaded with incendiary rounds, useful for creating diversions or dealing with their robotic hunters. The maintenance tunnel was tight, barely wide enough for his shoulders. Decades ago, it had served the city's underground infrastructure. Now it was part of an elaborate network of resistance passages, carefully maintained to avoid Kaveri detection. As he moved deeper underground, Marcus reflected on how the aliens' technological superiority had become their greatest weakness. They relied so heavily on their advanced systems that they'd forgotten the basics of warfare, the importance of terrain, of improvisation, of human ingenuity. The tunnel opened into a larger service area. Marcus could hear the low hum of Kaveri equipment above. He set up his tactical gear methodically, motion sensors at key points, remote cameras for Sarah to monitor approaches, and most importantly, the modified EMP device. Getting some strange readings, Sarah reported. They're using some kind of quantum scanning system. Might be able to detect the tunnel network. Marcus finished the final adjustments to the EMP device. Perfect timing then. Ready to show them why they should have studied Earth's resistance movements before invading. Always. But Marcus, make it back alive. We need you. He chambered around, the sound echoing softly in the confined space. They thought we'd be easy to conquer because our technology was inferior. Time to remind them that humanity's greatest weapon has always been our ability to adapt. The first explosion rocked the subway station above, a precisely placed charge destroying their primary power conduit. As chaos erupted, Marcus smiled. The Kaveri were about to learn another painful lesson about underestimating human determination. Sometimes, the most dangerous predator isn't the one with the best weapons. It's the one with nothing left to lose. Commander Zextal stood in the ruins of the subway station, his crystalline armor gleaming under emergency lights. The devastation around him told a story that infuriated the veteran Kaveri warrior. Precision charges, tactical positioning, and most importantly, no bodies. The human they called Ghost had struck again, destroying millions in equipment and disappearing like smoke. Impossible, one of his lieutenants muttered, examining the destroyed nanite control system. Their primitive technology shouldn't be capable of this. Zextal's upper arms tightened on his particle rifle, while his lower ones traced the blast patterns on a nearby wall. "You still think like a Kaveri," he growled. "That's why we're losing." Above ground, Marcus watched through his scope as the elite hunter-killer unit swept the area. Their movements were different, disciplined but fluid, adapting to the terrain instead of trying to impose their technological superiority upon it. This new commander was dangerous. "Ghost, we got a problem." Sarah's voice crackled in his earpiece. "They're using some kind of quantum entanglement communication. I can't intercept their signals anymore." Marcus tracked Zextal through his scope, studying the commander's behavior. "They're learning. Tell everyone to go dark. Full communications blackout. But without coordination. We adapt or we die," Marcus interrupted softly. "These aren't regular troops. They're hunters." In the streets below, Zextal's unit moved with lethal precision. Unlike the regular Kaveri forces, they used the rubble as cover, maintained proper spacing, and most worryingly, seemed to understand human tactical doctrine. "Fascinating species," Zextal commented to his team as they found another of Marcus's former sniper nests. "They lack our technology, our physical capabilities, even our lifespan. Yet they adapt. They learn. They survive." He ran a sensor over the position, collecting data. "This human, this Ghost, he thinks like a predator. But so do we." Marcus began his withdrawal, moving through pre-planned routes with practiced silence. But something felt wrong. The hair on the back of his neck stood up, an instinct honed through decades of combat. The shot came from nowhere, a particle beam slicing through the concrete inches from his head. Marcus rolled instantly, returning fire with 3 precise rounds. His bullets pinged harmlessly off advanced crystal armor as a massive figure emerged from what should have been solid wall. Some kind of advanced cloaking technology. Impressive reflexes, Zextal's voice boomed as the Kaveri commander deactivated his camouflage completely, especially for a species so limited. Marcus didn't waste breath responding. He triggered a prepared flashbang and sprinted for his secondary exit route. The Kaveri were faster than humans, stronger too, but Marcus had spent months preparing this battlefield. "The others dismissed you as primitives," Zextal called out, pursuing with inhuman speed. "But I studied your wars, your tactics, your history. Humans are at their most dangerous when underestimated. A burst of particle fire forced Marcus to dive behind a fallen support beam. His rifle barked twice, forcing Zextal to take cover. Then you know how this ends. Marcus finally responded, his voice echoing through the ruins. Your empire isn't the first to think superior technology meant guaranteed victory. Zextal laughed, a sound like grinding crystals. No, but we learn from others' mistakes. Your tactics worked against ordinary troops. We are something else entirely. As if to emphasize his point, two of Zextal's hunters crashed through nearby walls, their weapons charged. Marcus triggered another set of charges, bringing down part of the ceiling between them. The dust hadn't settled before he was moving again, using routes too small for the larger cavalry to follow. You can't escape, human, Zextal's voice echoed. Your tricks, your hiding places, your primitive weapons, they all have counters. It's just mathematics. Marcus reached a vertical shaft, quickly ascending via pre-placed handholds. Maybe, he called back. But you're forgetting something important. And what's that? Mathematics can't measure human stubbornness. The explosion that followed wasn't one of Marcus's. The floor beneath him began to collapse. Zextal's forces were bringing down the entire structure. Marcus pushed himself harder, ignored the burning in his muscles as he climbed. Decades of experience screamed at him that this was different. These hunters weren't just better equipped. They thought like humans while retaining all their technological advantages. He emerged onto the street level just as the building collapsed behind him. In the distance, he could hear Zextal's hunters converging on his position. For the first time since the invasion began, Marcus felt something close to worry. Sarah, he whispered into his comm, we need to change everything. They finally sent someone who understands us. Already on it, she replied. But Marcus, be careful. These aren't the arrogant aliens we're used to dealing with. Marcus checked his ammunition and began moving toward one of his emergency catches. No, he agreed grimly. They're predators, just like us. Time to show them what happens when you hunt a human who's spent his whole life hunting back. In the ruins behind him, Zextal studied Marcus's escape route with something close to respect. Finally, the cavalry commander rumbled. A worthy hunt. Deep beneath the ruins of Seattle, in an old nuclear fallout shelter that had become a resistance stronghold, Marcus stood before a group of 20 civilians turned fighters. Their faces were hard, shaped by months of occupation and loss. On the wall behind him, salvage monitors displayed cavalry patrol patterns and armor weaknesses. Forget everything you know about fighting, Marcus began, his voice carrying the weight of experience. Zextal's hunters aren't like the others. They think like us, move like us, but with superior technology. That means we need to think differently. Sarah stood at the back of the room, monitoring their security systems. Since Zextal's arrival, they'd lost 3 resistance cells and 5 sniper nests. The hunters were methodically dismantling their network, using human tactics against them. They expect us to fight like guerrillas, Marcus continued, holding up a modified rifle. To strike from shadows and disappear. So we change the rules. We make them face something they've never encountered. Humans fighting with nothing left to lose. He demonstrated the modifications they'd made to standard hunting rifles. Heat baffles salvaged from cavalry armor, primitive but effective countermeasures to their advanced sensors. They rely on technology. We rely on instinct. They have superior weapons. We have superior will. A young woman in the front row, Lisa Chen, former Olympic biathlete, raised her hand. But their armor can be beaten. Marcus interrupted, projecting detailed scans of cavalry crystal armor. Everything has a weakness. Theirs is arrogance. Even Zextal, who understands us better than any of them, still thinks of humans as primitive. We use that. The training was intense. Marcus drove them hard, teaching them everything he learned in decades of combat and months of fighting the cavalry. How to move silently, how to read terrain, how to think 3 steps ahead of an enemy with superior senses and reflexes. Ghost, movement on the surface, Sarah called out during one session. Hunter squad, moving in a search pattern we haven't seen before. Marcus moved to the monitors, studying the tactical display. Zextol's forces had indeed adapted again, using a complex interlocking pattern that left no blind spots. Good, he said softly. They're getting frustrated. How is that good? One of the trainees asked. Because frustrated hunters make mistakes, and mistakes against humans are fatal. Marcus pointed to the pattern. Look closer. What do you see? Lisa stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. They're favoring their right flanks. All of them. Marcus nodded approvingly. Kaveri anatomy. Their upper right arm is their strongest. Even elite hunters can't completely overcome ingrained physical preferences. We use that. The lessons continued, day after day. Marcus taught them to think like predators, while Zextol's forces hunted above. They learned to modify their weapons, to read alien body language, to turn the ruins of their city into a weapon itself. They have rules, Marcus explained during a night training exercise. Protocols. Even Zextol, who understands human warfare, is bound by Kaveri military doctrine. We're not bound by anything. The breakthrough came a week later. Lisa, positioned in a crumbling office tower, spotted a weakness in the hunters' new formations. They're using human tactics, she reported over their secure channel. But they're still thinking in 3 dimensions like Kaveri. Marcus, observing from a different position, saw it too. The hunters moved like human special forces, but their alien physiology and training made them predict human movement patterns incorrectly. A small advantage, but in warfare, small advantages decided everything. Time to test our training, Marcus announced to the resistance network. Lisa, you take the first shot. Remember, they'll expect you to withdraw immediately. That's what I would do. But we're not you, Lisa replied, a smile in her voice. We're what comes after you. The plan was audacious. While Zextol's forces had studied Marcus's tactics, learned to counter his specific style of warfare, they weren't prepared for dozens of humans using those tactics in ways even Marcus wouldn't. The new generation of resistance fighters didn't just copy his techniques, they evolved them. They're hunting a ghost, Sarah commented as they watched the operation unfold. But we're giving them an army. Marcus nodded, pride mixing with grim determination. Zextol wanted to hunt humans. Let's show him what happens when humans hunt back. The first shots rang out across the city, not just from one position but from dozens. The hunters reacted perfectly to what they expected, but the humans weren't playing by the old rules anymore. For every tactic Zextol had learned to counter, the resistance had developed 3 new ones. Remember, Marcus broadcast to his students, as the battle began in earnest, they think they're the apex predators. Time to remind them that humans climb to the top of the food chain on Earth for a reason. Above them, Zextol's frustrated roar echoed through the ruins. The hunter had become the hunted, and the real war was about to begin. Dawn broke over Seattle's ruins, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. From his position atop what remained of the Space Needle, Zextol surveyed the battlefield his hunting ground had become. In the past week, his elite unit had suffered more casualties than in their entire military history. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. Impossible, his second-in-command muttered, reviewing casualty reports. They're using our own tactics against us, but modified, evolved. They're learning faster than we can adapt. Zextol's 4 hands clenched into fists. No, they were teaching us all along. Every engagement, every retreat, every apparent victory. The ghost was showing us exactly what he wanted us to see. Below, the city had become a deadly maze. Marcus's trained resistance fighters struck from impossible angles, using techniques that combined his decades of experience with their own innovations. They didn't just copy his methods, they transformed them into something new. Found you, Zextol whispered suddenly, spotting a pattern in the chaos. The attacks weren't random. They were hurting his forces, pushing them toward a final confrontation. The Ghost wants to end this. Good. So do I. In the Resistance Command Center, Marcus watched the tactical display with Sarah and Lisa. The hunters were consolidating their forces, abandoning their distributed search patterns. He's figured it out, Marcus said, a grim smile crossing his weathered face. Zextal finally understands. Lisa checked her modified rifle, now equipped with innovations born from weeks of combat against the hunters. Understanding won't save them. Not anymore. No, Marcus agreed, but it makes him more dangerous. He knows this is the end, one way or another. He turned to his students, the fighters he trained, who had surpassed even his expectations. Today, we show the Galactic Empire why Earth was never going to be an easy conquest. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While Marcus's trained snipers kept the hunters occupied, resistance engineers had spent weeks preparing the battlefield. Every building, every street, every shadow had been transformed into a weapon. Remember, Marcus broadcast to the resistance network, "They expect us to fight like guerrillas, like insurgents. Today we fight like what we are, the apex predators of our world." The battle began at midday. Lisa and her team struck first, their shots dropping 4 hunters before they could react. When Zextal's forces pursued, they found only empty buildings and triggered traps. The humans had learned to use the hunters' superior speed and strength against them, turning their aggressive pursuit instincts into a fatal flaw. Clever, Zextal commented as another building collapsed, separating his forces. "You've trained them well, Ghost, but not well enough." Marcus's voice echoed through the ruins, broadcasted from multiple sources. "You still don't understand, Commander. I didn't train them to fight like me. I trained them to fight like themselves." The hunter-killer unit found itself facing dozens of different combat styles, each one adapted from Marcus's teachings, but evolved into something unique. Every human fighter had taken his lessons and transformed them based on their own strengths. Olympic athletes, engineers, street fighters, each adding their own expertise to the mix. As his forces were systematically dismantled, Zextal finally understood the true lesson. The humans hadn't just learned to counter Galactic technology. They'd demonstrated why their species had survived countless extinctions and challenges. They didn't just adapt, they evolved. The final confrontation came in the heart of the ruins. Marcus stood in the open, his rifle ready as Zextal approached. The Galactic commander's armor was scared, his pride wounded, but his stance was still deadly. "You could have killed me a dozen times today," Zextal said, his 4 arms spread wide. "Why didn't you?" "Because this was never about killing you," Marcus replied. "It was about sending a message. Look around you, Commander. Look what primitive humans did to the Empire's elite hunters." Zextal surveyed the battlefield. His unit decimated, his technology countered, his tactics turned against him. "We underestimated you. All of you." "No," Marcus corrected. "You underestimated humanity's greatest strength. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win." The particle rifle in Zextal's upper right hand hummed to life. "Then let's finish this. Predator to predator." What followed wasn't just a battle between 2 warriors. It was a clash of philosophies. Zextal's enhanced speed and strength met Marcus's lifetime of experience and innovation. The Galactic commander had learned human tactics, but Marcus had spent decades learning how to counter opponents who were stronger and faster. The end came not with a dramatic explosion or a heroic charge, but with a simple trick taught to every resistance fighter. As Zextal lunged, Marcus dropped and fired upward, hitting the exact point where crystal armor segments met, a weakness he discovered months ago but saved for this moment. Zextal fell, his armor finally failing him. "How?" he gasped. "How did you do it?" Marcus stood over the fallen commander, his rifle steady. "Because on Earth, everything is a predator or prey, and humans, we decided long ago we'd never be prey again." The resistance fighters emerged from their positions, surrounding the remaining hunters. Sarah's voice crackled over all channels, resistance and Kaveri alike. To all Imperial forces, your elite hunters have fallen. This is what humanity does to those who think us primitive. Who's next? In the days that followed, the Kaveri Empire would receive a comprehensive report from their defeated commander. Zextal's final transmission was simple. Earth is not to be underestimated. The humans don't just fight. They evolve. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every challenge makes them more dangerous. This is not a species that can be conquered by force. Marcus never kept count of how many aliens he'd killed. That wasn't the point. The point was teaching them, and through them their empire, why humanity had survived everything their world had thrown at them. It wasn't about having the best technology or the strongest warriors. It was about never stopping, never accepting defeat, and most importantly, never underestimating the determination of a species that had clawed its way to the top of a world that had tried to kill them countless times before. The Ghost of Seattle had done more than win a battle. He had shown the galaxy why humans would never bow to any empire, no matter how advanced. Because in the end, the most dangerous predator isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest armor. It's the one that never stops learning how to win.